It's time for This Week in WordPress, episode number 146, recorded on Monday, the 18th of January 2021. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host Paul Lacey, but we're also joined today by Vito Peleg and Maziar Firuzmand, and we talk about the WordPress news that's happened during the course of this week. There's been quite a lot to talk about. The first thing that we get into is new updates to Gutenberg 9.7, the new user interface, and there's some action in reusable blocks. We also get into the community proposal to decide when we might be going back to live events. What about the fact that WordPress.com are offering to build WordPress websites? Is that going to be competing with you? What about Webflow? Is that a technology that you've heard of before? Is it something you've dabbled in? It's not WordPress, but it could be useful. There's a new show and hide block plugin, which we very briefly talk about. And also we briefly talk about WPScan and the fact that they're now allowed to create CVE numbers for security vulnerabilities that crop up. And then we get into the interesting subject of tracking Facebook, Google, etc. Is it all too much? Well, you can find out today on This Week in WordPress. This Week in WordPress is brought to you this week by A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time, like in a couple of minutes? Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is, it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder, and the WordPress block editor. Check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Good afternoon. Hopefully you can hear me. It is This Week in WordPress episode. I've no idea. It's 140 something, but we're into the 140s. I think it might be 146. I'm not entirely sure. Joined today, as always, by Paul Lacey, who is the regular co-host, I suppose is the best way to describe it. I'm also joined by Vito Peleg, who's got some interesting things that have happened to him this week, and also by Max. I'm going to say Max, but Max, I apologise. I have forgotten the pronunciation of your surname. Would you kindly help me out? I'm so sorry.
Sure, that's expectable. The right pronunciation is Maziar.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. Maziar. Okay.
That's right. That's right. You're perfect.
Ah, good. That's very, very seldom does anybody say those words to me, so that's great. Today we are going to be talking about all of the bits and pieces that have happened in the WordPress news for this week. Some of it strays off topic a little bit, and we don't necessarily always talk about WordPress, but we'll try to stay on message. Just a couple of things. I'm going to share the screen. I'm sorry if you're listening to the audio. You obviously can't share the screen with us, but here we go anyway. WPBuilds.com, head over to there. That's where we produce most of our content. We've got podcast episodes and news episodes, rather like you're listening to now. If you want to keep in touch with all that, head over to this link, the subscribe link at the top, wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Got a Facebook group. I think it eclipsed 2,800 users this week, which was really nice. It's a very friendly Facebook group. Somehow we've managed to avoid all the incendiary things that tend to happen online, so go and join that. What else have we got? We've got a deals page. If you want to avail yourself of a WordPress deal this week, go over to that, check it out. Searchable, filterable, those products never disappear. And then this is a little bit clumsy, but I'm going to try it anyway. If you want to keep in touch with what we do in terms of this, we produce a newsletter, and you'll get that by signing up with this grey form on the subscribe page. And then we'll send you on Tuesday a newsletter, and it will contain links to what you're currently watching. So if you don't manage to get through it or you miss it one week, then there'll be links to that. But we'll also have links to all of the other bits and pieces that we missed out of today because we just didn't have time. And they look a bit like this. So there you go. Right. If it's okay with you guys, I'm going to hand straight over to Mr. Paul Lacey because he's sort of leading us on several of these items. And he's in fact leading us on the first one, which is entitled Gutenberg 9.7 something, something, something by Justin Tadlock.
Yeah, we've just had a news flash in though that we need to cover something before that. I know people who are just listening to this won't be able to appreciate what we're talking about here. But guys, what's the elephant in the room here? Come on.
Oh Lord. I don't know.
Well, last week it was my midlife crisis, and I dyed my beard a little bit darker. But Max has just brought back the facial hair theme this week in absolute style, and is sporting an absolutely awesome mustache that makes me feel really jealous and envious.
Thank you,
That is
Paul.
absolutely
It's very kind of you.
amazing. It's really amazing.
No, I can do something like that. It will never look so nice and full.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it was like
Absolutely
10
brilliant.
years ago or something. I had a mustache like this, so I really wanted to make it something that I won't miss for another 10 years. That's why I went this harsh mustache. Sorry for the
It's great.
surprise.
It's awesome.
Great.
Thank you. Sorry. Back to newsflash.
You need the breaking news,
Breaking news. Yeah. The facial hair news has escalated to new heights, I think, this week. So let's see what happens next week anyway. Okay, so the first article, the actual WordPress article that we're talking about is Gutenberg 9.7, dropped last week sometime. For anyone who's not sure, Gutenberg is the block editor within WordPress, but the Gutenberg plugin is kind of like the experimental side of the whole project, where a lot of the new features appear first. So the plugin drops. You don't have to install the plugin if you're using the core WordPress. You can just use the core block editor. But if you want to see the latest features that are going on, then you can install the actual plugin, and you'll be able to see the kind of things that they're working on. A lot of the things that they do inside the Gutenberg plugin, some of them come through to core, and then other ones, if they decide it's not yet ready, they push it aside and maybe concentrate on that later. So Justin Tadlock on WP Tavern has done a great article that kind of summarizes what's new in Gutenberg 9.7. I'd say it's a fairly techie update. There is some user experience updates in terms of there's always a few kind of little bits and bobs going on there. One of the main ones is they have these things called block variations. And the example that Justin gives here is that, let's say, for instance, you've got the video block. When you add the video block, you might pop in a YouTube URL, or you might pop in a Vimeo URL, for instance, into that block. And then what the new user experience improvement does on block variables is, in your kind of block inspector on the side, where you can see a list of the different blocks that you're using or what block you're editing at the moment, it knows, for instance, that because you've popped a YouTube link in there, that this is now a YouTube block technically, even though it's a video block. So it's just some little improvements there that I guess are based on feedback of other people using it. One of the other things that is updated is there's a change to reusable blocks. So reusable blocks, I didn't realize this, but Justin mentions in the article that reusable blocks seems to be a feature of the Gutenberg editor that has been probably a little bit left to the side for a while. It's not really been actively developed too much. And Justin tells us in the article that one of the changes, they've made a change to the kind how we can edit reusable blocks. So we can actually now, using the Gutenberg editor, so far as I understand it, edit a reusable block in the page that we're currently editing. And when we get to save the page, it asks us, do you just want to save the page, or do you want to also save all the iterations of the reusable block changes that you've made? It's an interesting idea. And when I saw it, I understood it mainly because Justin had explained it to me. But I think that this one will, in my opinion, be something that people will struggle to get their head around when they're saving something. They've got to kind of agree to, for instance, saving 2 or 3 different items on a page plus the page. So we'll have to see how that one kind of goes down. And then finally, the last thing in the article, one of the last main things in here is something called page templates for full site editing. Now, even after reading Justin's article, I still didn't really understand what this was all about. So if anyone else here in the panel does, that would be great. But it seems that there's kind of some kind of new feature coming in for the concept of page templates in full site editing. And Justin has some interesting comments, because I do feel that Justin is someone that fully tests these kind of features and does know the implications. He seems to be raising a couple of concerns about the concept of how they're doing it. And then there's a bit of discussion in the comments as well. So I think this one is particularly interesting to anybody who is developing themes as opposed to end users. So if anyone's got any comments on that in the panel, go ahead. But that's more or less the summary of that particular article.
I'll just make one quick comment, and it's about the reusable blocks. I totally agree. I've used reusable blocks quite a bit, and I find the current workflow is really less than desirable in that when you load, let's say, a reusable block, you have the option immediately to save it, and I always mistake that for making it into an editable, just a regular block, and I never quite remember that I've got to do that, and so I'll amend it. In my case, it's just simply putting a there's paragraphs pre-filled out for the different sections of the news and things like that. And I always click save after I've added loads of content in, and then think, oh no, I needed to decouple it. And so I think there's quite a lot of improvement to be made, and I'm sure that will happen in the future. But you've kind of got to find the right menu, detach it, make it into a regular block, and all of the language around that doesn't feel right. To make it into a regular block doesn't tell me that I'm decoupling it from its reusable status. So I think you're right. I think there's quite a bit of work to be done.
Yeah, Justin's actually created his own plugin that helps, not necessarily with reusable blocks, but I know he's got a plugin, and there's another plugin that I use as well that helps you do things like convert reusable blocks to block patterns. And I feel that the block pattern concept resonates. It makes a lot more sense to me. But I did have a problem with where you would find your block patterns. It was always a bit clunky. But I did notice when I was using the block editor just the other day that when you start searching for blocks, it was now returning patterns as well, which was useful. It might have been doing that for a long time, but now at least I don't have to, click, to the plus button, then click show all, then go over to the left and click on patterns, then scroll down and find the pattern, which was a bit of a laborious process. It seems that either it was already there or I didn't notice it. But so it seems that things are improving. But as usual, I think this article just show that there's so much conceptual level thinking, and I think the entire team and the entire concept, I think they're possibly struggling to pull all this together. I think I don't want to criticize them for it because they're doing great work, but I think that they're struggling. I think that this is a very difficult project, the entire Gutenberg thing, the block editor, and I think they're struggling from what I can see. From what I can see, to a commercial product, how I see those kind of things rolled out.
Vito, Max, anybody?
Sorry, sure. I'd like to say that I really appreciate and support any attempt for reusability in any content builder. We had this problem for a while in Elementor, if you guys remember. So there was extensions, including our own extension under WP, just for reusability of styles and block templates. And then they also added this feature. So reusability is really a challenge, maybe one of the biggest challenges for designers, web designers, content producers. So I'm sure this is a good step forward, but for sure there are some more room for improvement of reusability capabilities.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that in most websites, you probably have some sections that repeat over multiple pages, and I'm still not sure, like, how is it going to work here in terms of managing them. So if I want to edit the reusable block, and will it change it throughout, or will it just resave it? Will it go through the other pages? So what Elementor did there was basically they created another tab in the WordPress admin that allows you to manage all of your reusable assets, the templates, essentially. They call it templates. I think that this might be a good point, and we also saw that with our page, because we have like a Gutenberg template that we're sharing, like a wireframe templates that we share with our users, and no one can ever find where to deploy this because it's so hidden in the under like 5-7 clicks until you get to the right location. So I think that starting to think about as Gutenberg expands. And it does expand from week to week. Started to think about additional tabs inside the WordPress admin to allow you to manage more granular things. I think that this is kind of becomes a necessity now, especially with those kind of stuff.
Yeah, we covered a few different projects over the weeks, haven't we, Paul? Where the people have implemented different versions of the UI. So rather than having that customizer width section where everything goes, including things which really do need a bit more breathing space, like block patterns, which it would be really helpful if you could see a big version of it. Lots of people trying out different things, taking over the full screen, a little bit like things like Elementor and Beaver Builder do. And I think the idea of constraining everything in that little sidebar just seems a little bit silly, and something that will have to be dropped in the near future.
No, there was something about previews here on this article specifically that is being added, so you can really see a little more of what you're trying to do. Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, like these. This is. I think this is quite nice. Is it a rollover thing though? I don't think it's there by default. It'd be nice if that was. I can't remember how this is implemented, but yeah. Okay. All right. Shall we move on, Paul? Do you want to do your next one?
Yep, sure. Okay, so the next article, again, is from WordPress Tavern, and it's by Sarah Gooding, this one, and it's entitled WordPress Community Team Proposes Using a Decision Checklist to Restart Local Events. So it seems that the discussion on make.wordpress.org began in late December to start discussing how do we return to face-to-face in-person events in the world of COVID-19, for instance. And I think that what they're probably talking about mainly at the beginning is things like WordPress meetups, the smaller events. But obviously, that's probably the best place to start, because if you can get that right, then obviously you can scale that up. And I think that the challenge that they're talking about here is that the meetings that they're really talking about are the kind of officially sanctioned WordPress meetups by, I think, is it Automatic who sanctions them? I'm not really sure. So the official meetups and then leading up to the actual WordCamps. And I think it is a tricky one because there's so many different factors here. So for example, if you go to the WordPress meetup in London, just the regular meetup, that can be a bigger event that happens every month than a full-on WordCamp that happens elsewhere in the UK, in a smaller city or a smaller town, for instance. So the situation is just different, and then the situation is different in every single country. And then also you've got to kind of, if you've got a checklist, then you've got to be concerned about, okay, at time, you've got the checklist at time of organizing, and then you've got the checklist a week before, and then you've got the checklist on the day. And obviously safety comes first from every situation. So there's 5 points, there's 5 main points here that are worth reading out in terms of what they've got on the checklist. And those are: is your country's or state's average positivity rate over the last 28 days under 4% for COVID-19? Number 2 is, in the last 28 days, has your country or area's basic reproduction number stayed under 1? Number 3 is, in the past 14 days, have there been under 50 new cases per 100,000 people reported? Number 4, does your local government allow for in-person events? Which that's clearly a critical one. And number 5, is there a cap on the number of people who can meet at a time? And will you, as an organizer, follow this guideline? So I think when I read this, I think depending on where you are in the world, you will just read this and feel more optimistic or more pessimistic. 3 of us out of the 4 today are in the UK, and we're probably reading that list and thinking that we're not going to see any in-person events, maybe even in 2021, because here in the UK,
lockdown.
We're doing a great job of going way outside of those kind of numbers here in the UK, and also the stats are different in all kind of places. Where I heard that in Australia there's sporting events going on, people can go and watch cricket matches, and so the situation is different in all different places. So I do think that this is cool that they've got this list, which does mean that at least in certain parts of the world, if you meet in the checklist, then there's a possibility that you can start looking at having in-person events. I don't know what everyone else thinks about this, but certainly from the UK point of view, it's a bit of a reality check for me looking at that list, and
I think it's really
when things can
interesting
happen.
from two different sides. Firstly, I'd be really keen on a personal level to go back to events as soon as it's possible.
Me too.
But I don't know what that feels like yet. Certainly within my local area would be something that I'd be more willing to try out, let's say Leeds in my case, but then perhaps a little bit later progressing to other parts of the UK, London and so on. And then finally thinking about getting on planes would be kind of like the last version of that. But imagine that you're an organizer. Imagine the trepidation of getting 90% of your WordCamp organized, ready to go, even if it's just a meetup. Let's just say it's a meetup. It's a lot of work to suddenly be tripped up by one of those 5 hurdles, and it's something for which you just have no control over that. It's a completely moving target. And so I wonder what the impact of people willing these events into reality, the people who are organizing these, I wonder how much less likely they're going to be to committing to doing the event, simply because with no intervention on your part, the rug could be pulled from underneath your feet immediately. So yeah, two sides. I'm dead keen to go, but I can also understand why there might be far less of these events in the foreseeable future until the world has really generally calmed down a bit.
I think that it's well, I'm on the same page as you, Nathan. Like, I can't wait for events to come back. I haven't left the house in a year, so that would be great. But that being said, like, I think that the government has those guidelines in place for any type of group of people that are gathering. So if it was me, like, first of all, like, you can't do events, at least not in the UK. But for countries that you can do, or they already have, I imagine that, like you said, Paul, in Australia, they're running sporting events and stuff like that. I'm sure there's already a list of guidelines or a checklist that these guys needs to go through anyway. So I can see why to create that additional layer for the organizers, for the sponsors that might be supporting an event and might like lose the sponsorship because the venue was hired, the pizza was ordered or something,
Yeah.
So I would just stick with point 4. That would be my suggestion for them. Stick with point 4, and if it's allowed, then check the guidelines in your local area. But I also think that it's gonna take a long time before people feel comfortable going. So even after it's allowed, as much as I want to go, I'll probably still stay on the fence for a couple of months after it's already coming out, because we've already seen this year that like you said, it's a moving target and nothing is certain, and something that seems very clear in 1 week, then the other week you have like another strand or another mutation of it, and then the whole deck gets reshuffled. So I think we're still at least a year away from that, I would say.
Liam, sorry, Max, you carry on.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Nathan. From the point of view of Istanbul, I want to say that the answer to the question listed in this article is almost no to all of them. So no event is allowed. There are different kind of limits, the lockdown times and everything. Even unlike UK, restaurants, bars, and everything like that, every place like that is completely shut down right now in Turkey. And I can completely agree with you guys that we all cannot wait for, in-person meetings. Honestly, I really do not feel anything like the in-person meetings when coming to virtual meetings we have in the marketing team or any such, meetup meetings. But thing is, it doesn't look like anything, possible anytime soon. When I'm looking at the situation, both in the global level and in Turkey. And the amount of work that it takes, it's devastating for the organizers. I actually organized one of these meetings in WP Translation Day 2 years ago. And I have helped some other events, but this one I was the organizer. And I saw closely how much of work it takes and preparation it takes, even for a event at that scale, which is not comparable to a WordCamp. But just like you guys say, it takes a lot of time, and suddenly it can change. This, you will sleep, and the day after you see something has changed, the lockdown times has changed and such. So, given the fact that organization canceled WordCamp Europe 2021 very early last year, I guess a month after WordCamp, or 2-3 months after WordCamp Europe 2020. And I was actually very disappointed for that. It was actually interesting for me to see that this is something in the plans right now, like considering the possibility of restoring local WordCamps. I really look forward to that, and I wish the best of luck for the team behind it. But the local situation that I'm here in Istanbul, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah, I guess the local situation is going to be the one that we're all most keenly focused on. If we can just get to something nearby, that will be a start. But yeah, a few comments around this. Sabrina Zidane saying it sounds like a lot of extra work for the organizers, which indeed it does. But like I think it was Vito said, it's probably just the same set of regulations that your government would require you to put in place anyway. And we also had Leo Mindell saying, seems like there's no reason at the moment to even try planning an in-person event, because just stay online, he says, and make it work that way, and then we'll have to see. This is going to be an interesting one, because at some point it will happen, but I guess it'll just be like the dam breaking. Maybe I don't know, the government just have to say from one day to the next that, yep, you're allowed in the UK to do this now, or you're allowed to travel outside of the UK to do this. Let's wait and see. It's such a weird one, because we're in a strange community where there's no profit in this. So, the Australian sporting event, there must be a real need for that to go on to get somebody's job working, to get somebody paid. But we don't really need to do that. And sorry, Vito, I realized I talked over you about 4 times there.
Like, I wonder if it's gonna be like a dam breaking. I think it's more gonna be like, starting to drip in, and it's gonna be a process over a course of hopefully 2022, when people start to go back to to real life. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I didn't actually put this in the show notes, but I think it's probably a good one to mention. There's an event happening, in just 4 days' time, 22nd of January, Wordfest. We mentioned it last year. Last week we had Michelle Frechette on, and she's one of the lead organisers, along with, I suspect, Leo is involved in some way, and certainly the WP and Up, as was now Big Orange Heart team, are involved. So just a quick plug for them, Wordfest.live. It's a 24-hour event covering 4 time zones, and if you go just here, you'll be able to see the list of sessions and so on, and you can register with this register link just here. But it's absolute boatload of stuff happening, and it's all happening this Friday. I'm hopefully going to be in some way, shape or form involved. Right, I'm going to move it away from inline events, and I'm going to go to this one. This is not a new piece of news, right? We covered this last week. So Vito and Max, sorry, we're sort of re-going over some old ground. But the reason I've mentioned this one again for the second time is because I just thought it was interesting that a non-WordPress website, in this case, we're looking at a search engine journal article, have picked this up. And for me, that kind of demonstrates that this is actually of interest to the wider world. And it's this piece about WordPress.com now offering website development at this starting price of like $4,900 or whatever it might be. And there was a few interesting things which just caught my attention. And it was that they put in some Twitter feeds of people from both sides of the argument. So you have some people saying, look, it's fine. It will grow the pie. The pie's going to get bigger because of this. And then there was another piece which we didn't follow last week. We didn't really talk about. And that was the ability for WordPress to use the word WordPress. And I'd forgotten that. None of us are allowed to use that word to advertise. I mean, we are in terms of, we can say we build WordPress websites, but we can't say we are WordPress. And I mentioned the search engine juice that you would imagine WordPress.com will get. If you're going to type in WordPress website for $5,000, you can imagine what's going to come out as number one. So I just thought it was interesting that another news outlet, which is tangentially related to WordPress, but in this case, search engine side of things picked it up.
To be honest, for most people, for I would say like 98% of not just the world, but even inside the community, the differentiation between .com and .org is still very vague.
Yeah.
And like really understanding that the .org is the open source product and .com is the commercial company behind it, or essentially leveraging what is done by the community on the .org to create like the biggest multi-site in the history on that platform. So yeah, this discussion is coming back again and again when it comes to the ability, because like you're saying, it's not a matter of just using the name, which is awesome for SEO for them, but it's also using the logo, and there's all kinds of stuff that are that Matt has kind of given specific allocations for his own company to use the same name as a product that is being developed by by the community and supported by a charity essentially. Here in the UK, this wouldn't fly. It's against the law. If you would do something like that as a charity in the UK, you would have to choose either that or that, and one would have to change the name. You can't run a company with the same brand name as a charity, but because exactly of that. And here in the UK, they're very much on regulation around nonprofits and stuff like that, which I know that in the US things are a little more capitalistic, so they're a little more kind of there's a lot more leeway when it comes to those kind of things. But I think it's a very fair point for all of us. We're sitting here talking about a product that then someone else is taking this name that we keep saying 1,000 times during this broadcast and capitalizes on that. It's a very fair point.
I kind of read the story and then looked at a few comments on it, and most of them were fairly sanguine. Most of them were sort of like, it'll be fine, don't worry. But I've got one on the screen from, I don't know this person, Jack Kitterhing, with the Twitter handle CodeMonkey_Jack, who kind of, I think, sums up the side of things who think this is a bad move on Automatic's part. He says, absolutely ridiculous that they have done this, in my opinion. If they wanted to, it shouldn't be on WordPress.com. No one else can use WordPress, in quotes, in a domain. It's like, hey, you all made WordPress popular. Now we're going to steal your customers, and then evil laugh. And then you got the other side of things. So, for example, Jonathan Bossinger, if I can find that quote, where's it gone? Here we go. Playing devil's advocate. What if this just makes the pie even bigger as more people move to WordPress, and when their need grows beyond WordPress.com offers, they move to self-hosted alternatives? And then there was.
So I think that the plans that they're offering is not on the multi-site. It is self-hosted. Yeah. The point of what they're doing is they're allowing people to come out of this closed environment of WordPress.com. Over to more customizable environments, which I imagine also means that it's self-hosted, or at least hosted differently, and using the open source product to expand it with plugins and themes and whatever that is created by the community, as opposed to WordPress.com that is very, very closed in its level of functionality. So. Yeah. Like they are building what we are building. It's like it's some people don't mind the competition. I don't think it's gonna be much of a big deal, but it is a competition. That is like super clear.
Yeah. This is a comment made by Matt Mullenweg on the 4th of January. So this is right back before the debate really got started. And he says, I would be extremely surprised if this impacts anyone's consulting business. If you do have a current or potential client leave for it, let me know. I don't know whether he means on Twitter or how you would do that, but let me know. It should be all new to WP users who wouldn't have been successful getting started. So he's obviously... I don't know whether that will prove to be the case, but the intention on the 4th of January was to pitch this to people who've never used WordPress before. In other words, he's trying to stop the migration of possible new customers to alternatives like Squarespace and Wix. But I don't know how you would determine if somebody truly was new to WordPress or not. Only time will tell. Paul, Max, anything on this? Sorry, Vito.
Guys,
so what I'm saying... Yeah, go ahead, Max, sorry.
Thanks, Peter. I want to say, do you think we can interpret this as WordPress VIP is expanding from high-end sector of the market to mid-end sector of the market? Maybe they are trying to expand their market fit, let's say, for that service. This is how I'm interpreting this move.
Yeah, Matt Medeiros put out a video. Yeah, Matt Medeiros put out a video where he said that he would, it's pretty clear that he thinks this is a bad move. In the video he did, I think the video was called something like "I Call It WordPress" with small W, small p. You can search it, YouTube, and he was pontificating that that's the play, is start at 4,900, and then when that works and you've got the playbook figured out, then cut it in half, go to 2,500, and then cut it in half again, and till eventually you've got, I think he said something like $500, till you've got the $500 template, which is also possible, and that's the fear. But I don't know. Certainly, if we're to believe what Matt says in that tweet, and time will tell, then that's not what they're trying to pitch. But yeah.
So what you see, and we know that as consultants, as agencies, it happens that you have people starting to build something on WordPress.com or starting to build something on Squarespace or Wix, and then they go to an agency or a professional to create the next level of product for them. And here they have like a built-in funnel inside the product. Something that I don't know if Squarespace offers or Shopify offers. In that same way. So like it really does, affect the, I don't know if someone can, like, if a small agency in the UK can say it's going to kill my business, but it is a natural flow of people starting with free products like Wix, or really cheap products like Wix or .com, and then moving on to us as agencies. So it's bound to happen. What is saying is not going to happen.
Yeah, I wonder if it was really successful and there was absolute proof that people's agencies had been directly affected. I wonder if Automatic would just box it up and put it to one side and say, look, that project was bad for our community. Let's just shelve it. Although it was profitable for us and it was working well, let's just put it on one side.
But it's not the community.
Exactly.
Like the .com is a different company. It's a different product,
Yeah.
So they don't have any reason to consider the .org community, even though I'm sure that they will, just from PR kind of point of view. But if you're looking at it in a dry kind of way, it's completely two different products. It just happened that they are called exactly the same.
A good segue from here, Paul, if you've got nothing else to add for this, we could go to your Webflow piece if you wanted.
Yeah, sure. The last thing I'd just say on this one is Matt Mullenweg obviously there says he'd be extremely surprised if this impacts anyone's consulting business, and does kind of give the offer out that if you are getting affected, please let him know. And but we did speak to someone, I'm not going to say who it was, who had some good opinions on this whole situation. And this person, in response to that, pointed out Matt Mullenweg's Twitter, what is it, your description, your profile, the sentence underneath your name, basically. And it says, Matt Mullenweg, I can think, I can wait, I can fast. And I think that's one of the points from a business perspective of Automatic, is that they don't have to rush anything. So yeah, they might not affect any digital agencies or freelancers at this point. But if you kind of look at the mindset of Automatic and the slow burn that they can do on a strategy like this, then yeah, it's going to be very difficult to see the immediate impact on anything. But it will, I think, but in different ways that we might not expect it and we might not be able to figure out right now.
Lovely comment in the comment thread from With Mikes over on YouTube. Devil's advocate position. What if WP.com is just better at doing it? What if? Then we've really got something to actually worry about. Okay,
can I add one,
you can, of course, Max. Yeah.
So if you remember last time we were talking about Envato's decision or the news that they are promoting Envato Elements banners when actual authors are promoting their products there. So it's actually, it was raising almost the same type of protests, and it's understandable. However, I really want to give this a time and see the actual consequences, because WordPress VIP, for example, was there for a long time, and there was agencies who were partnering with WordPress VIP, or they were working independently, and it was working. The economy was working. So we should see if this hypothesis of stealing business because of the SEO juice or something is actually damaging other businesses or not. If it happens, it's really disappointing. It's like WordPress leveraging on the trust that was built by the entire community out of sudden. So I hope that this won't be the case, and the economy will continue to grow for both independent freelancers, agencies, and Automatic itself.
I think that out of the VIP product, I think that VIP is like the biggest corporate level or enterprise level agency in the world. So they already cornered the market on that, on the high end part, which I'm sure that there's a lot of agencies that would have wanted some of the action, building the New York Times blog or something like that, So it already happened. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I would have taken New York Times website, for example.
Sorry?
Yeah.
You would have taken, yeah.
Anybody want that help? Yeah. Anybody want to rebuild TechCrunch? There was chatter, and I can't remember whether it was in this article that we just had on the screen or if it was elsewhere. There was chatter about them taking on agency partnerships, but I can't remember whether that was just a
They did something with Upwork. They tried to do something with Upwork for a while, which I think that's an appropriate kind of way of doing it. But like under the same point that you said, Max, with Envato, now Elementor also had it. Like I think a few months ago, they also released some kind of a platform like this that is more competing with the .com than with the agency level, and it would be like Elementor would start building websites, basically. Leveraging the name that everyone was using this and starting building like agency websites of $3,000 or so. It just seems wrong. Or let's say me with the WP Feedback, serving agencies and then also building websites at scale under the same brand name that they placed on everyone's clients' websites. It just seems like
it's like a backdoor. Yeah, it's interesting.
Do you think maybe the same thing as WordPress VIP partnership can happen in this, within this program as well? Like agencies who help Automatic help people build websites.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've got a memory fail on this, but that is, I'm sure what I've read is somebody talking about, whether it was on Twitter or if it was Automatic proposing, I can't remember, but I think there is a plan for that. If anybody's got any insight in this, probably not in the comment thread at the moment, but I don't know if anybody does listen to this and knows. I would genuinely like to know what the thinking is.
There was talk that it was going to Codable, I think, but hopefully, as far as we know as well, Nathan and I talked to Matt Medeiros just the other day, and he was saying that it's very likely that he's interviewing Matt Mullenweg exclusively about this particular aspect, or if it's not exclusively about this, it's about the general business machine, the corporate machine part of Automatic that is quite clear is moving at whatever pace it is, even if it's a slow one. It's moving, and it's got a lot of money behind it. It's got a lot of power, and it's got the community's well-being, and it's in the palm of its hand in a way. But yeah, that probably does segue us to the next item, which is about a alternative product. So if you are an agency or a freelancer and you've been exclusively working with WordPress, the software to develop websites, then there hasn't been a ton of alternatives to genuinely feel absolutely confident in, because within the open source community, WordPress is obviously the main one. And if you were looking for something like for like as a kind of no code or semi-coder kind of person, there wasn't a ton of alternatives, apart from there is a couple of commercial ones. And one of them is Webflow. I've looked at Webflow a number of times over the years, and I've never jumped in it myself. But I know a lot of people who have migrated from WordPress to Webflow, and those people are agencies and they are freelancers. And from what I understand of Webflow, it is a pretty fantastic product at what it does, and it's doing more and more stuff all of the time. Webflow has been trading in profit for a number of years, making quite a lot of profit. And they recently have just announced that they've acquired $140 million of Series B funding. They even say in this article, which is on the Webflow website, on webflow.com, they even say that they didn't even really need the money. They said that they could carry on, but they felt that if any time there was an opportunity to move to the next level, it was now. And they said that they gained over 10,000 new customers over 2020 than they were expecting as a result of, most likely, of COVID. Now, Webflow taking 140 million here gives people a product that they can feel extremely confident is not going anywhere, even in a global economic downturn. So I think this is the case that as Automattic does kind of cause problems for the agency, or what Matt Medeiros might call always term the blue collar WordPress implementer, or the blue collar WordPress designer or developer, that there are now other options, and you can cut your losses and go somewhere else. And it's definitely something I'm looking at. I don't think I'd be fully migrating away from WordPress anytime soon, but I look at Webflow as a product and I think, my user persona is pretty close to what they're talking about. If I hadn't invested so much already.
Yeah, when you were looking at it in the past, because I confess I've literally never used it. I've probably seen 20 seconds of people doing screen demos of it, and I just thought, oh, that's interesting. That looks really nice to look at. What was it, that prompted you to have a look? Is it just sort of shiny object syndrome, or did you genuinely hear from people that it's good and it's possibly could do the work that you need it to do? And why didn't you start using it?
It's very aimed at the corporate brochure type website. Okay. So, and they figured out what that particular persona needs, and they provided all of the tools there for you to do that, and all of the flexibility to do other things as well. So if you are an agency or a freelancer, probably the typical person doing that kind of job, 80% of their work is brochure sites. And when you look at WordPress.org as a platform, you need to combine maybe 10, maybe even up to 20, maybe sometimes even more plugins to give yourself the functionality that you might typically need for that kind of site. Then you've got the care plan type stuff that you need to do, not because you just want to make profit, because WordPress sites for corporate requirements are naturally going to have security issues. They're naturally going to break at times. And yeah, if you want to go down a different route, then Webflow is something for that as well. There's also a number of commercial reasons someone might move, because there are people now businesses who are aware that they've been burnt by WordPress before, whether they were burnt by a WordPress developer rather than the software. But from their perspective, they may have felt last year cost us £100,000 in loss because of what they deem as WordPress. It was actually the developer maybe, or the consultant. But they heard someone else was doing really well with Webflow and didn't have any of these problems. So there's thousands of businesses now looking for Webflow developers, looking for Webflow agencies, and that's a commercial opportunity for anyone with the same skills that are operating within WordPress. So it's if I was Automattic right now, I'd probably be looking at Webflow as a serious competitor. I think that Automattic can outdo Wix. I think that they can outdo Squarespace, but Webflow is a different beast, and they've just acquired $140 million. That's a lot of money.
If somebody gave me $140 million, it would be completely breathtakingly large amounts of money. But I wonder what $140 million in this, with this,
they're already trading at a profit. Yeah. They're already trading at a profit. So they have a stable product, and hosting is part of their whole setup there. So I think this will allow them to just take it to another level.
Yeah.
And this is a big threat to Automatic, in my opinion, because this company knows how to market and not have to hide what they're doing. They can just say, this is who we're targeting, this is what we're doing, we're a business, and we're here for our customers.
The comment thread, again, with Mike's on YouTube, saying that that's the problem is that it's not extensible. It doesn't have the sort of same architecture like WP does, which enables you to do anything with added plugins and so on and so forth. I don't know. If that is true, then yeah, that is a bit of a drawback. But if the target market is just this one type of website, which it fulfills admirably, yes, I would imagine it is a threat.
You can extend it quite a lot further, especially you can hybrid it with WordPress now as well. There is a plugin called Udisly, and I think it's udisly.com. I'm not sure, but if you Google Udisly or Webflow WordPress converter, you will find it. I know a few people now who are using the Udisly plugin. They create their website in Webflow, and then they convert it to WordPress using Udisly, which converts it into a theme and a plugin, a bit kind of like, let's say, combining GeneratePress and GeneratePress Premium. It integrates with WooCommerce and all of those kind of things. So you can create your base brochure site in Webflow and enjoy the amazing code output that you'll get from that, plus the absolute pinpoint no-code control that you've got over the design compared to something like the block editor. Then you can push it to WordPress and you can add another layer of functionality there as well.
Can you go backwards and forwards with that? Can you then make an amendment? Okay.
Yeah, there's ways to kind of sync it backwards and forwards. So you've got kind of the design level in one place, and then you've got the functionality level on another. So there's a lot of stuff happening in Webflow, and it'd be interesting to see the progress.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
We wanted to actually segue before we go to number 5. Nathan, I know we're probably running out of time, but I think accidentally someone found out the other day that Vito's product, WP Feedback, is rebranding. And the reason I checked with Vito before this that we could ask about this, because it seemed to me from what I saw in the rebrand that, Vito, you were moving away from being attached to WordPress, the word, or WP, to a word that your new brand doesn't have the word WordPress in. And it also seemed to me that you were also moving towards a SaaS direction as well. So I just wondered, and I also heard your interview on WP Tonic, which was really good. And it was a different interview that I'd heard from you, Vito, because this was more reflective and it was talking about the future. And you were talking about the masses of problems that you had as a result of things like the Gutenberg editor or the jQuery removal and the whole ecosystem changing so much. And I wondered, being as we're talking about an alternative to WordPress, are you looking to move away from WordPress as the center of your core and such?
So not like in the long run, yes. The idea is to open this up to all of the other platforms that are out there. But that's not because I don't enjoy the WordPress as a tool. I still love it and I still use it literally every single day. As my point, or like one thing that happened specifically with our product is that I didn't feel that it's a plugin anymore. So when we first started, or it's not a matter of feeling, the fact is that it's not a plugin anymore. When we first started, we started as a plugin company. We released a plugin that you install on people's website, and that's it. That's everything that we supported, and that was the extent of the functionality. It was contained inside the client's website, like every other plugin, if you will. But over time, we saw the need for creating like a way of managing the entire agency, as well as multiple websites, or dozens or hundreds of websites. We have users that have literally hundreds of websites connected on there. And that's when we launched our Pro Dashboard, as we call it. The Pro Dashboard is a full-on SaaS. It's Laravel and React, and it runs on AWS, and it has every single characteristics of a SaaS company, while what started as a plugin has become just the client interface. So in the same way, like Intercom has a plugin, to integrate their SaaS application to someone's website, or Zendesk has a plugin to integrate some functionality in there. That's how we've been running for a little more than a year now. The thing is that everyone still saw us as a plugin, and plugins are priced very cheap because they have different overheads, they have different kind of even cost of development is like completely different around that, and that really hurt us in terms of the positioning. People just seeing us as a single plugin, while we are carrying the same duties and the costs and responsibilities as companies like Zendesk or Trello or Teamwork with our product. So like we're still priced like a WooCommerce add-on. It's ridiculous, So that is kind of that was what I said. All right, I have to have a very like big or maybe like brave decision of taking what the name has done for us, WP Feedback, which was awesome for the past 18 months, and just put a stop to that. And having people, first of all, not look at it. WP implies that it's a product, that it's a plugin. And the word feedback implies that that's all it does. It create feedback on a website. But, like this is where we were at version 1.0. And pretty much 3-4 months after that, we were already not a feedback plugin and not a plugin even. So that is kind of that was kind of inspired the change that is coming later this month with version 2.0, where we're putting a lot more resources, even more over to the dashboard side. Everything is like this version 2.0 is also gonna get us to a point where, even though we started as a plugin that is installed, so all of the data was stored on the client's website, that is now being taken out as well over to our side, so the website stays clean, like Zendesk or Hotjar or ActiveCampaign or all of these kind of guys that have a plugin that just integrates via API. But yes, later this year, basically because of users' demand, we're going to be expanding this to a script that you can deploy over to Webflows, or to Wix, Squarespace, wherever. I'm even starting to look into creating additional plugins for different platforms, because having a plugin creates the level of flexibility or an integration that you can't do with just a script. So that really helped us create a product that works on the back end, the front end, and really doing like one-click push into the media folder, auto logins, all of those things that you can't do with just a script that doesn't really like properly integrates into the database. So we're looking into options for doing this for Shopify. I think that will be the first one after the script. And yeah, massive rebrand, version 2.0. Very exciting.
What's the new name as well? It began with A, I think.
Yeah, it's called Atarim. Atarim means websites in Hebrew, actually, which is my native language.
I think Nathan and I guessed it was a Hebrew word.
Yeah. So I actually went with Andrew Palmer. He kind of, I was talking to him about this and was thinking about different names and all of that. Is like, what's the problem? Just go to Google Translate and find something that kind of applies. And it's such a great exercise. And so Atarim just made perfect sense because that's where the focus will still be, but it's still a broad word that no one really knows what it means, which means that the vision can expand with it, as opposed to a word like WP Builds that limits you, Nathan. You can't become a Magento expert with the WP Builds, right?
Thank you.
Thank God.
Congratulations. I'd like to congratulate you, Vito, for this move. It's actually a very meaningful strategic move. Awesome. Good luck with that.
Thanks.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, that is amazing. And happening, I guess,
at the end of this month with version 2.0.
Really soon. Okay.
We've been working on it for like 6 months now, and like what inspired this kind of I was telling Nathan before we started the broadcast. Friday morning, I'm waking up, looking at my phone, and I'm seeing people sharing the new website that is still being developed on social media, saying, "What happened to WP Feedback?" I was like, "Oh my
The
god,
cat is out of the bag. The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, I guess it comes from concern though, doesn't it? Because if you see something that you've become to rely on, and somehow the media gets hold of it, and in this case it was Facebook groups got hold of it, and it's out there. It's, you know, the full intention was that you would announce this in due course and probably write things so that they were as explanatory as possible. But it would concern you, wouldn't it? You'd be like, what the heck? What? I'm relying on this now. Explain quickly, which now you managed to do in record time, you said.
Yeah, because so it was planned for a few weeks from now, and everything that was supposed to happen over the upcoming 3 weeks was crammed into 3 hours on Friday. That I woke up and had to deal with all of that. So video was out, and but even more than that, people were going into our new Atarim website and seeing all of the feedback items that we had, just internal discussions of the different kind of maybe this needs to change. So it was
lessons learned. Congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
The only question, Paul, is can we have him back? That's, if he's not, you wolf.
That's right. Okay. I'm the one chasing you, Nathan. It's not the opposite.
Right, let's move on. A few quick things, if that's all right. I'm going to go through this really quickly. A couple of things to mention. Just plugins, really. A few nice additions to the plugin universe. Justin Tadlock mentioned this one. It's called Show and Hide Content via the Block Visibility WordPress plugin. So this is a dead simple little plugin. It allows you to currently change based upon user role. What else was there? It's in that image there, which is now too small. I can't remember, but date was another one. So essentially, this plugin will allow you to stick stuff on a WordPress page or post and simply say, show it at this time, and then remove it at this time, which is, I think, for a lot of people, this is the core functionality of a membership style plugin. Show it to this particular user role or this particular user. There's a pro version coming. I did want to talk more about it, but probably with time running out, we'll just drop it and say, there it is. Looks really good. And Justin, as always, has a good look. Pro version coming out soon. The next one, I think, Paul, you should probably lead on this one because you've had a much more involvement with the guys over at GeneratePress. They've got a new project. Well, actually, it's not a new project. It's just they've got a new angle on a previous project. They've got a pro version of Generate Blocks.
Yeah, so Generate Blocks is a plugin for the block editor, and you don't need to use GeneratePress or anything like that, but it's by the same people. It's by Tom Osborne at GeneratePress, this plugin. So the core Generate Blocks plugin gave you, I think it was just 3 blocks, but you could do a ton of things with those. So they go down a different route than, this block pack that has 30 blocks in it, for instance. The GeneratePress way is, how do we make something have as much longevity as possible? And that's Tom Osborne's decision-making process always. So he released Generate Blocks, the free plugin, which pretty much whenever you see anybody trying to make a agency type, or a designer trying to make a website that looks something like what they might have made with Elementor or Beaver Builder or something like that, almost always they will fall back on the Generate Blocks plugin and use that because it's a plugin that gives you very intricate design control within the block editor compared to what it gives you by default. Now, they've just released, I think it was a couple of days ago, GeneratePress Blocks Pro.
I think it's Friday, yeah.
It was Friday, yeah, and it gives you, again, it kind of gives the designer type person or the professional site builder all of the stuff that they asked for from Generate Blocks that they didn't have, but with holding back on some of the things that they might have asked for, but really they could do it another way. So this is what I would just call a very mature way of approaching intricate level design in the block editor. The pricing of the Pro plugin is $39 a year for one site, $69 a year for 10, and then $99 a year for 250, which that's the one I've gone with. You can get a real feel of what is achievable with Generate Blocks Pro by looking at the series of templates that you get with it. I think there's how many? 150 professional templates. I don't think that's full sites. I think that's different template layouts and stuff like that. They've all been, almost all of those have been done by a really awesome designer called Mike Oliver, who works for GeneratePress and Generate Blocks. And I know that Tom and Mike have worked extremely closely for Tom to understand what a real professional designer genuinely needs out of the block editor. And all of that thought has gone into this. The product is pretty awesome. If I was building a website in WordPress and I was going to be using the block editor, there's just absolutely no doubt this is what I'd be using. But I am a GeneratePress fanboy. I will put that out there. So I am slightly biased, but I think that a lot of the community agrees as well. Just to segue from this as well, Mike, the actual designer of all the templates in there, you can find his website at mikeoliver.me. He, in tandem with the launch of GeneratePress Blocks Pro, released his course. And his course is entitled How to Build Lightweight and WordPress Websites with GeneratePress and Generate Blocks. So if you go to his website and you want to learn how to use Generate Blocks to the level that allows you to do these kind of layouts, this kind of mobile optimization, and you want to learn that very quickly, then you can go and sign up to Mike's course on his website, mikeoliver.me.
Yeah, it's mikeoliver.me/GeneratePress-GenerateBlocks-course. It's kind of like a nice 1-2 punch, isn't it? Tom comes out with the pro version, and then somebody that works for him, but independently on more or less the same day, releases a course about how to do it. I think that's quite a nice, symbiosis. Just to say, the pro version doesn't add any it doesn't add any more blocks. It's just the ability to customize things. So for example, on the screen we're showing a screenshot of the additional options, so it's things like being able to add transitions and opacities and box shadows and transformations and all of this kind of stuff, the fun stuff in a way. But you can build all of the layouts, although they might not look, or at least they would be less easy to create the sort of visual effects and so on and so forth. So interesting pricing as well, $39 for the one license. And then what was it for 250?
Something like 250 sites or something. I think it was $69 for 10 sites, and then $99 for 250 sites.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because we had this same thing from the guys at Grid Builder. Do you remember their lifetime deal? It just went for like one site to 10 sites, and then it was, I think, 999 or something. We got Tom doing the same thing. Just fascinating what the rationale behind that is. I would imagine that most people, just because it's not that much more, will just go for this $99 deal, just because. $30 gets you 240 more sites.
I think one of the cool things about this product as well, I mean, not just to big it up even more, but I guess, is that these design templates that Mike has produced with the plugin have all been done with just the 3 blocks that Generate Blocks, the free version, comes with, and the Pro add-on, and mostly the core blocks that come with WordPress. So it's not like there's 70 or 80 or even 250 different modules that are needed to create these designs. These designs look as detailed as the things that you see on the Elementor, templates and stuff like that. And what Generate Blocks is doing is proving that it's possible. So as much as I'm a massive doubter of the entire concept of, the block editor, it's proof that it's doable.
Can we see them? Are there any ways on this
I think
website?
if you go to, I think there might be a secret link, library.generateblocks.com. Try that. See if you can get there.
Library. We're not actually going. Oh, I can't spell. We're not actually doing any naughtiness here, are we? .generate.
No, I think you can find this link from within the plugin, probably. But I think, this happened to Vito anyway, didn't it? So it's all fair. So I don't know if this is just the row blocks, but I think all of the actual templates, the full page templates, are probably baked into the actual plugin itself. Probably.
Okay.
But I know you can have a sneak peek there for anyone who sees this link. So hopefully that's not got anyone in trouble.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes. library.generateblocks.com. Looks cool. Max, Vito, anything, or should we move on?
I think that
I want to say,
yeah, go on, Max.
This time yours, Vito. All yours.
So like there's these all types of add-ons and plugins that are big.
I'll be right back. Back.
Classic Paul. But what I'm saying is that recently, since Gutenberg has been kind of moving, it's just been pushed out with so many limited features or like lack of features. It inspired like a full-on industry around it with a bunch of people that are putting a lot of faith in creating add-ons, creating plugins that are doing some basic functionality that I think the page builder should have had, the block builder should have had on its own. To me, it seems like such a risky business model because you don't know what's going to come up next month on Gutenberg and how long this product, like for now, it looks amazing, but this is what I would expect from Gutenberg to have in its core, the ability to do those pretty basic stuff of adding a background color and the border radius and those kind of stuff. So I'm really interested in seeing like what kind of drives people to just put all of their faith or all of the entire business over something that is, and it happened with other builders before, with Elementor as well. They would release a feature that will make a plugin obsolete. And that's their prerogative, that's the core product. They can add whatever they want onto it that makes sense. But this seems like it just seems risky. It seems scary to me to do something like that, to go down this route.
He's lucky in that he's got a very, this is say Tom. Tom's got a very good reputation with his Generate Press theme. And so I imagine he's going to bring a lot of people on board.
Right. He already has an audience. He doesn't need to build it from scratch.
Max, sorry, you were going to say.
Sure. So I want to say that this product is impressive. I've not used it, but just looking at this preview, it makes sense to me. And I think this is like a good answer to those who think that WordPress, specifically Gutenberg, has reached its limits in terms of capacity for new products. See, like Vito says, they have, better than the future of Gutenberg, but right now it makes sense. And me myself being someone who's building WordPress websites, I'll definitely check it out. But maybe something happens tomorrow and they add this feature to Gutenberg itself, and then something may break. Business model wise.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then what? Then what you're gonna do? This is the risk that they are taking, and but looking at the product right now, it makes sense. I find the value that they propose. Looking forward to work with that.
Yeah, it does look nice. I've bought it, and I'm just gonna have a play with it over the days and weeks to come. We'll see where we go with that. So
there's certainly a risk, isn't there, with with developing alongside the block editor in Gutenberg, like Max was saying, that it's so young in its lifespan, the block editor, that there's commercial opportunities right now, but it's risky because so much can change. And if someone sees an idea that's done really, really well, the spirit of WordPress is you can mimic that and build that into core. And I see a lot of the plugins that come out at the moment. For instance, the membership type, micro membership type thing that we looked at just before this piece, to me, has functionality that I could totally see being pulled into core. And there's a lot of plugins like that I can see getting pulled into core.
Yeah, that's true. It would be a risky thing to make the pro version of that, only to discover that somebody had actually built that.
Nathan, I'd like to bring one more point about this. We actually had have a similar product we did for Elementor. It's an extension for saving styling for Elementor widgets and saving them in the cloud and using them in other WordPress Elementor projects. The same way you can save blocks and use as well in other, and it's actually working. But it's like some time passed, and Elementor team decided to give this feature. It's not exactly the same feature, but the global styling that they released later on, it was somehow overlapping with this feature. So we are not monetizing that product. It was just for more like a contribution to the community. But we actually and closely saw this happening. So yeah, it's very risky. You have to predict a lot of things before taking such risks. But I wish all the best for the Generate Risk guys.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a nice little segue as well. I was going to talk about WPScan, but I'll just simply mention that it's quite an accolade. We had Ryan Dewhurst on the podcast a few weeks ago. Ryan does a fantastic job. Probably is very underknown, shall we say, but he's the guy behind WPScan, and he's built, I think it's fair to say, largely single-handedly the WordPress vulnerability database, which a lot of the companies which you think are creating these vulnerabilities, it's actually him. The more well-known companies in the WordPress space, he's actually sort of subletting his list out to them in many cases. And he's been given this nice accolade. He can now create CVE numbers, which is really boring. But if you're into what he does, it's going to make his job a whole lot easier. In the future, we'll be able to identify WordPress vulnerabilities. He will be able to give them a number, making sharing of them a whole lot easier. So just a bit of a hat tip to Ryan, who has done this work tirelessly since 2014, I think, and has only recently come up with a way of monetizing it. So for years and years and years, he was just doing it for the benefit of all of us. So thank you to Ryan. Well done. And don't know if this is going to affect you. I don't know if this is even worth mentioning, but if you're a user of Facebook advertising, then iOS 14, now I'm not an iOS user, so I'm still going to be battered by Facebook adverts and it will still be as effective. But iOS 14, Apple have made it such that a setting which was previously, you had to find it, you had to bury into the settings and find this setting to switch it off. Well, now they've basically had it going to have it on by default, and it's going to prevent Facebook and presumably other people, but Facebook are the ones that are probably most in the firing line. It's going to prevent them being able to track you in quite the same way that they have previously. I think it's to do with sort of anonymizing tokens as opposed to them being able to literally follow you around. So perhaps, if like Vito does and like Max does, I would imagine both of you have been involved in Facebook advertising, the Apple side of things, which is a massive slice of it, you are going to struggle to make those adverts pay. And Facebook got up in arms. They put this kind of press release out where they were claiming that really it's all about the small businesses. This is wrong for the small businesses. No mention of the fact that they track you all over the place and probably know more about you than is sensible for a company to know. But yeah, it's just an interesting piece of news. And I think because I use Android, this won't affect me. So it's kind of a bit of a non-article in my case. But I think this is the right decision from Apple. I think somebody needs to kind of put the brakes on what these tokens going around the internet can find out about us.
And so, next week on This Week in WordPress, Facebook deletes Apple's Facebook account.
Yeah.
Deletes Nathan's account.
That's right.
And probably mine now too.
Yeah.
And YouTube demonetizes this video. So
yeah, I mean that won't make the slightest bit of difference. So that's perfectly all right. But just interesting, I think a company like Apple are the only people that can really pull this kind of thing off. I would imagine that Google wouldn't dream of doing something like this because it will hurt the underlying proposition that Google has to make money out of Android, which is
the same thing.
Selling adverts all over the place, just without the Facebook, without the Google name attached to it.
So like it's not gonna make a difference in terms of you're seeing ads or not. You're still gonna see ads, but it just makes a difference in terms of that's what I understand. What Facebook is saying is it's not gonna decrease the ads for anyone. All that it will do is it's gonna make it harder for businesses to show you relevant ads. So you might see like you might see like a foot fungi when you're like a 12-year-old or something like that, because there is no way of targeting this just to Nathan, for example.
It's fascinating though.
Are you implying that Nathan has foot fungi?
I didn't say that. It depends on the pixel.
I'm not going to react. I'm showing a screenshot of what iOS is now going to show, and it's the language that I think Facebook are objecting to. So this menu, which is on the screen, it was previously a menu you had to go and find, and you could basically set it on or off. But now, when you install iOS 14, or presumably when you buy a new iPhone with it installed, every time that you go to a new site, this is the warning that you get, and
on every website.
Yeah, well, I don't know, in all honesty, but here we are looking at the Facebook variant of it. It says allow Facebook to track your activity across other companies and apps and websites. Sorry, other companies' apps and websites. And so the language is interesting, because I think most people, given that sentence, will say no. Don't do it. Because what's the benefit to you of being tracked? I mean, I think a few of us understand that maybe you get a better ad, but it doesn't. But you don't want to be tracked. I think most of us have that kind of built-in tracking. Ooh, no. If they'd worded it slightly differently. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So
what I like about this,
it's only about that. It's only about the fact that you can show, like, you can serve ads that are relevant to what people are interested in. I like that. I don't think it's a bad thing from a consumer point of view. Why do I need to see like ads that are irrelevant to me? At least show me something that can really help me get to the next step in everything in life, instead of just random whatever, BT or Virgin Media kind of ads, because that's what's gonna happen. Yeah. It's just going to be going back like you watch TV. 95% of the ads are irrelevant to you because it's not focused.
Yeah.
So I think part of it will be affected by this fear or this new things, if this trending things that we have had about Facebook sharing WhatsApp data with Facebook. In the midst of all these events, there is this fear and lack of trust. People have, generated against Facebook. So just like Nathan says, I guess many people will just say no. They don't like to be tracked, regardless of the outcome. Maybe even the positive outcomes getting tracked, just in this case, might have for them. They will see less irrelevant ads. They will see, more relevant ads if they don't say no. But yeah, there is this, mistrust about this kind of companies. And it was another blow in the face of marketers by Apple, maybe the second or third in the past years. So let's see how we can deal with it.
Yeah. A Facebook user, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. The reason we don't know who you are is because you had to click a link above the actual video in Facebook, and it allows StreamYard, which is the platform we use. It allows them to track you. So it's probably the exact thing that we're talking about. But yeah, the Facebook user, whoever you are, says, "Hey guys, it doesn't say turn off tracking. It says the app ask app not to track," implying that the app might say, "Nah, I'm going to track you." I don't think so. My understanding is that if you say no, it really does sandbox the experience that Facebook can apply to that. But I could be wrong. And the
what is concerning here, like what you're saying, if it's going to be shown on every website, which means that every website of every client that has a pixel is going to be throwing those pop-ups, which
I don't know.
You really big concern.
You would have thought that they'd have maybe figured out that the Facebook pixel can no longer work across the board. Don't know. Let's see how the dust settles and find this out. I always leave tracking off everywhere. Again, in the comments, tracking on everywhere. I would rather see adverts I might want. Makes for a better experience, which beautifully segues to the last thing that we're going to do today, which is an article on the website. Let me just pop that on the screen and take that post off. It's from Kira McLean, who has made it a goal for herself during 2020 to stop using Google products, basically because she thinks the same thing about Google as we've just been talking about with Facebook. And so she's gone out of her way this year to try to replace all services that Google have their tendrils in. And so on the screen, there are things like, so she's going to replace Gmail with Proton Mail, Chrome. She's gone to Firefox Developer Edition. She's using DuckDuckGo. And imagine a laundry list of Google services that she has decided to replace. I was persuaded by this, and during the course of this week, I've completely shut down Chrome. I've uninstalled it. No, I haven't. That's not true. I've basically taken it out of the dock on my Mac, and I've put a Chromium version called Brave on instead. And I'm not going to be quite so gung ho as she is. But I'm interested to see what drawbacks there are for me if I try a different browser for a while, if I sort of can get myself away from Google. So that's just an experiment that I'm carrying out. You may notice, I don't know if you see the UI of the browser that I'm using, but it's Brave, and it has this nice little feature here, which it may not show because I'm in an incognito window. It shows you what trackers are happening on the current session that you're using, and you can then take appropriate action if you like. But yeah, I'm convinced. I think she's got a good point. I'm not going to go nuts. I'm going to use Google Drive. I'm going to use Google Maps, but I'm going to stop giving Google for a period of time every single thing that I browse on the internet through the Chrome browser.
I switched out of Chrome mostly because it just kept crashing all the time. But even with I'm using Edge now, which is also Chromium. It's kind of based on the same concept. But I do find myself using incognito as a default. Like when I browse around the internet, especially on my phone and my iPad, it's just like the standard is that it's gonna open something in incognito.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that does it, even though you don't know. You never know. The still tracking is there.
One of the features
in ISP can still track you.
Yeah. Well, no, you use a VPN, and then that's another thing.
VPN
but also, no, this Brave browser comes with look. Check this out. One of the options is to open up a new private window with Tor. Hang on, I wasn't showing the screen. So look at this. I'll just turn Christopher's comment off. So you can go incognito. But you can also go incognito, and that window will be served through the Tor network, which I just thought was fascinating.
Is that a VPN? Is that like a free open source VPN or something?
It's not really a VPN, but it has similar. It basically separates up your web browsing experience, sends it to multiple different locations, and then rebuilds it. It's much slower, but it is provably more secure. Not perfect, but very, very close to perfect. It stands for the Onion router, or they say router elsewhere, but I just thought that was an interesting privacy feature. So you wouldn't even need a VPN, but your browsing experience would be much, much slower. Mm-hmm. Chris in the comments says, ugh, I couldn't do all of that. It's my worst nightmare. Back to the days of things not working with each other. Yeah, I get it. I'm going to see what bits of it I just can't drop and which bits of it I can, and see what works.
I got a message for Chris. I think I can imagine Chris uses the full Google suite and says yes to everything on Facebook, and probably gets a lot of adverts for lifetime deals for SaaS software as well, most likely. Which makes me wonder, which makes me kind of join the link up with Chris, because he's probably a bit of a legend in terms of being one of the most prolific buyers of SaaS software, as he's well admitted on this show a number of times.
Yeah.
So Chris, you might want to switch, and it might save you some money.
It's the proposition of these combined services, the stuff that Google provide ostensibly for free. We all know what that means, right? You are the product, but it's unbelievable. My kids are on homeschool, and literally it couldn't be done without Google Classroom. This completely free suite of products, which Google built several years ago for a situation exactly like a global pandemic where no kids can go to school. And it's absolutely brilliant. And I do not know what schools would have done without it. So it's not that I've got an axe to grind against Google. I'd just like to experiment and see if my experience is changed by just opting out.
Now they're tracking your kids.
Yeah. Oh my God, so much. Actually, no. I think there are bits in the terms and conditions that you sign that are different because it's geared towards children's use. But I imagine they're taking anonymized metrics of, you know, what works, what doesn't work, but not perhaps attached to an account name or what have you. Yeah, interesting. Lifetime deal hoarder 2021. There he goes. I've got the trophy, Paul. Right.
For sure.
I'm done. I think we've done. Unless anybody's got anything they want to drop, say it now. Otherwise, we'll knock it on the head.
I'd like to thank you, Nathan and Paul and Vito. It was nice to meet you guys, and thanks to everyone who watched this show. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was nice.
Thanks again, Max.
It is so pleasant, isn't it? Like Paul and I constantly say when the show's finished, God, that was so enjoyable. I really enjoy doing this.
Yeah, me too.
It's just nice, especially now that we're all trapped inside. It's more pleasurable than it ever was. Just having an hour and a half in this case, just to chat through and shoot the breeze with some like-minded people.
Just hang out.
Yeah, just hang out. It's wonderful. So, firstly, thank you to Vito, thank you to Paul, thank you to Max. And thank you to anybody who joined us. If you've got any comments to make, stick them in YouTube comments or stick them on the Facebook post, whatever you like, wherever you like. And we'll have a podcast out on Thursday, and we're back next Monday, 2 p.m. UK time. Take it easy.